Build these easy habits and you will skyrocket to Radiant. As an Iron player, you're most likely fairly new to the game, but the first habit you want to get used to is understanding movement inaccuracy. With all of the rifles in Valorant, even if you're aiming directly at somebody, the bullet can still miss if you're moving while shooting. For newer players, it can be tricky to get the hang of coming to a full stop before taking their shot, which is why so many of the lower ranked players abuse guns like the Odin or the Ares, since it doesn't require much movement and you can just hold down a sight like the Terminator without strafing. But this doesn't actually help you improve at the game, as you don't learn key mechanics that you'll need later on. You need to stand still when you shoot, which might sound kind of scary since standing still might make you an easy target. However, as we mentioned, in Iron, many players won't ever stand still, meaning their accuracy is just going to be terrible. Don't even worry about counter strafing or dead zoning or all those fancy things you hear in other guides. Just apply the simple concept of see, stop, shoot, and you'll be out of Iron in no time. Once you become a Bronze player, it's important to start thinking about learning crosshair placement. This is essentially making it so that your crosshair is always at head level, so that you only need to make minimal micro adjustments to actually hit a headshot. This is a very crucial mechanic to learn, and I know a ton of you guys watching this probably think you've mastered it already, but record a few rounds of your own gameplay and you'll be surprised by how many times your crosshair isn't at the correct level to get that easy headshot we're talking about here. And you're either forced to make a crazy flick or you just simply die in the process. Even Immortal players struggle with this from time to time. All these guides aren't trolling you when they talk about crosshair placement. It's by far one of the most important parts of the game, and if you master crosshair placement alone, you could easily skyrocket straight up to Ascendant. But what we recommend is building up the habit of every time before you swing an angle, first correct your crosshair placement and then peek. By resetting your crosshair placement every single time you turn a corner, you'll have multiple times every round that you're thinking about where your crosshair is, allowing you to realize just how many times it's off. Now trust us, if you apply this habit, you'll start shooting up the ranks in no time. Silver is probably one of the toughest ranks to get out of because the skill disparity is very high in the lower ranks. You'll end up with a ton of bad teammates and so will the other team, but it's important not to take out your frustration on your team. Everyone tilts sometimes, and that's okay. But when you tilt at your own team, it can really ruin the team morale and cause your already underperforming players to play just even worse. It's also important to note that since you're in the lower ranks of the game, that a lot of these players are casuals, and tilting a casual player will more often result in them throwing the game anyway. The best habit you can build up, especially in low elo, is the moment you start to feel yourself getting frustrated with your team, just mute everyone. If you feel like your team is negatively impacting your mood and your ability to perform, go straight to the menu and just mute them. It's far better than taking out your frustration on your teammates, and as we said, it'll at the very least prevent your teammates from throwing your matches intentionally just to get a rise out of you. So always keep a positive mindset and attitude, and if you think someone on your team made a mistake, communicate it with them and try and make it as positive as possible. After you finally escape Silver, you'll be where a majority of Valorant players are currently stuck, and that's Gold. Gold currently has the highest number of players out of any rank, and this is because most of them learn the basics but don't really fully understand how to use their utility correctly. In this rank, it's very common to see a Jet who isn't dashing into entry or a Sova who isn't using their dart and drone correctly. Now, I'd suggest watching a full agent guide on whatever agent you're currently maining, but the most important step in using your utility the most efficiently is to communicate with your team. If you have your Phoenix ultimate, you can communicate that you want a certain dart to entry with your ultimate. Or if you're playing Fade, you can tell your teammate to wait for your Prowler. The best way to build up your communication is to just start by communicating every time you use an ability. So if you're droning as Sova, simply say, I'm droning. Or if you're playing Phoenix, simply say, I'm flashing. By communicating your every action, you'll get far more used to talking in the game. Now, sure, maybe you'll think that your teammates should just notice you doing these things, but the reality is, sometimes they just don't have a sightline on you. By communicating your actions, you'll also increase the likelihood your teammates will help you and play off of your utility. There are tons of different ways to use your utility, but by communicating it, you can make sure to use it to help enable your teammates so you can work together and bring home that W. And as you're approaching the higher ranks in the game, this is going to be crucial. This is around the time that you're going to start hitting a bit of a mechanical barrier where your tactics really need to be refined. And that's where we come in. At SkillCapped, we take the highest priority skills to climb ranks fast, such as aiming, and then we break those down into a step-by-step course that's palatable and easy to understand. You'll not only learn the basics, such as crosshair placement and how to master your movement and things like that, but even more advanced concepts like getting more multi-kills and repositioning. These courses, they've been getting 5-star ratings from users that are just like you, raving at how helpful they've been to their gameplay. And that isn't all though, as every week we release 6 brand new VOD reviews where Radiant coaches teach you how to climb out of your exact rank. And if you're looking for something a little bit more personal instead, then we got you covered there with our new one-on-one coaching at our SkillCapped Discord. Now, all this is too good to be true. We get it, it sounds like that. Well, don't worry, because you're backed up by a rank up guarantee. If you don't significantly improve while actively using SkillCapped, then you get your money back, and there's no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and get the rank that you've always wanted. Alright, now let's get to the upper ranks in the game, starting with Platinum. Platinum is honestly a weird rank. You aren't necessarily high elo, but you aren't low either. And this is where you really need to start communicating with your team so you can play off of them better. Now in this rank, the team who makes the least mistakes will usually win the game. Peeking off a teammate's contact is really strong and a concept that not many lower elo players use to secure round wins. This makes it so an enemy never has the opportunity to isolate 1v1s and clutch an otherwise unwinnable round. This is why in Platinum, the habit we recommend building up is to always try and buddy up with teammates when they're around you. Before retaking a site, make sure you're with a teammate. If you're defending site, make sure you're close to a teammate so you can play off each other. Setting up a crossfire in most situations is also very strong because many people in Platinum tend to overextend and take unnecessary fights. They also won't be using utility as well to break up your crossfires, meaning that you'll have a bunch of free kills by just simply playing with your teammates. The days of fighting alone and making solo plays are over in Platinum because players will have much better mechanics and it'll be harder to win every single gunfight. Now, you're in the era of team play. Take advantage of it and you'll shoot to Diamond in no time. Once you're in Diamond, you're finally reaching the top ranks of the game. This is when your movement starts to become a slightly bigger factor. Many pro players use their movement with good crosshair placement to actually hit headshots without having to move their mouse. This concept, it's called pre-aiming. When you understand the common angles of where an enemy may be, many players will pre-aim the wall and strafe out with their A or D key and then counter-strafe to clear common angles without even having to move their mouse. This takes out the inconsistency of having to make big adjustments and is one of the key concepts you'll need to learn to level up your gameplay. To practice this, we recommend building up the habit of applying counter-strafing during your gunfights. Your days of spraying are over. Instead, now whenever you take a fight, fire off 3 to 4 bullets, then stop, strafe, and shoot again. This won't help you necessarily with pre-firing angles, but it will get you far more comfortable with your movement during gunfights, and later on, you should naturally be able to apply pre-firing far more comfortably. Once you hit Ascendant, you're now so close to getting the juicy rank of Immortal. This is where the margin of error becomes even smaller, and you need to start coming up with a plan and maximize your utility usage. At this point, you need to start learning your main agent more in depth so that your utility can be as effective as possible. For certain agents like Sova or Fade, it's a good idea to learn some recon dart lineups or haunt lineups. This will allow you to get the most information for your team and can help you know when to rotate or not. For agents like Brimstone or Viper, post-plant Molly lineups can also be very strong to help your team win an otherwise unwinnable post-plant. Comboing your ultimates together is also a surefire way to secure an easy round win, so make sure to check if your teammates are close to ult or have it all ready to come up with a plan to take the site, like using a Killjoy lockdown followed up by an Astra wall. The best way to build a plan is to communicate it before the round, which is exactly what your Habit and Ascendant should be. During the pre-round, you should be thinking about what sort of play you want to happen at the start of the round. Even if it's just something simple like taking Garage with a drone, the more you get used to communicating strategies, the more comfortable you'll be developing them on the fly during a stressful post-plant. If you've been practicing that habit from gold of communicating your actions, then this should be a very natural transition. You're already used to talking, now you just got to start talking more. Many players maybe get a little bit exhausted communicating all the time, but the reality is you're pushing the top 1% of players. You're gonna have to work with your teammates eventually here. And if your aim isn't there one day, it's really important you're able to get impact in other ways. Master communication, and you'll be pushing Radiant in no time. Now, finally, you're playing Immortal and looking to improve. The biggest habit you need to learn to implement into your gameplay is isolating angles. So many Immortal players overcommit to fights or expose themselves to multiple angles at the same time, which makes their life just so much harder. The key to isolating advantageous fights is by slicing the pie. To do this, you need to clear every single angle individually. This makes you not only have a harder target to hit, but also makes it so all of the shots you take are easier to hit. When you incorporate good movement, good utility usage, and good understanding of angle isolation, you should be able to climb all the way to Radiant in no time at all. This habit is going to take a lot of practice, we get it. So what we recommend is that every time you find yourself in a clutch, whether it's a 1v2 or 1v3, pause and take a reset. Take a deep breath, and then start to approach the situation slowly. Start slicing the pie. Peek the first angle, and then the next, and then the next. This is the best time to practice this because there isn't any outside pressures from teammates running around forcing fights. If you just wide swing 3 people, you're surely going to lose the round. But if you can slowly find each 1v1, then you might have a chance. Suddenly, you've gone from being frustrated when your whole team dies to making it a productive practice session where you can try to get as close to winning as possible. By not chalking these rounds up to a loss, you'll actually realize they are far more winnable than you originally thought. And there you have it. Habits for every single rank that will take you all the way to Radiant. This was just a glimpse of what we have to offer though. Over at SkillCapped, we've got you covered with dozens of tailor-made courses that will teach you everything you need to know about climbing in Valorant. We'll teach you everything you need to know so that you can start playing at an Immortal level in no time. Now, along with this, we also upload tons of VOD reviews every week that our coaches record from looking at players that are just like you. So rather than just paying for one $200 coaching session really anywhere else, you can get access to hundreds of sessions for just a few dollars. Not only that, but our coaches are also at the ready in our Discord to take a look at your gameplay and tell you exactly what your issues are, if by chance you don't find value from all the other things that we offer on our website. So use the link below for a discount link on your purchase today. And other than that, we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.